Welcome. In this video, we are going to talk about table creation in an MS Access database. Tables are what hold our data, and in order to use this program, you need data. So I'm going to show you the different ways that you can get data into a Microsoft Access database. To begin with, open up Access. We're going to create a new blank database. When you click on it, you'll be prompted to enter a file name. For this particular project that I'm going to be working on for these videos, this is going to be an employee database. And I'm going to click Create. And it's going to open for us. Now, we're presented with a table view here. And what we're going to do is actually add the fields. So coming into this, you need to know what data fields you're going to be capturing and what you're going to name those. So for this particular table, I'm going to click to add. I'm going to select the data type. In this case, it's going to be short text because this field is going to house my employee ID. I'm going to tab over, select short text again because my next field is department. And then my final field for this table is going to be called employee name. So again, short text. And tab over. Now what I want to do is I want to save it. So I'll come up to my save icon. And with my table objects, I always prefix them with lowercase tbl. In this table, it's just going to be employees. And I click OK. Now at this point, I can manually type in data and tab over. Let's say, for example, you have thousands of employees. How are you going to get that data in there? Well, somewhere, hopefully, there is a file that contains this information. It can be in Excel format, text file, HTML, XML, could be on a SharePoint server, could be on a SQL server, could be in the cloud. Doesn't really matter. We can click and link to it, or we can just open the file and copy and paste within this table. But I'm going to show you the built-in capabilities within Access and how to fill in this data. So we know that this has been saved. So I'll do that once again. I'll close that out. So now we have our first table. If you come up to your ribbon and right above your ribbon, if you click external data, on the left-hand side, you'll see new data source. I'm going to click that one and it's going to say from file. Now I have a CSV file, which is a text file. I'm going to click text file. And now we're going to be prompted with some information. First things first, where is this document located? Well, I know that mine is on my desktop because that's where I placed it. And there it is, employee sample. I click open, selecting this. So I'm going to go with the second option. I want to append records to the table. And it's going to give you a drop down for the tables. And we want to go into table employees. I'll click OK. And it presents us with how it's pulling the data in. So it gives you the sample from the file, and it shows you the data headers, and it shows you the fields. Now you'll notice there are cursors, or not cursors, commas between the data. It's delimited by a comma. If I click next, you'll see here, choose the delimiter. Well, it recognized comma, so we're good there. First row contains field names. That's accurate, as we can see there. So I'm going to mark that one. Employee ID, department, employee name. I'm going to click next. And it's going to tell me import to table employees. Now let's go back here. You can scroll across and you're going to notice something on the end here. There's a field called PTO. I don't have a column for that in this particular database. Down here under field information, PTO, I want to skip this one. I don't want to import it. If I were to import it without skipping it, we're going to get an error. So now that that's marked, PTO, yep, it's marked. Click OK. Now click Next. Table employees, yes, click Finish. You can simplify the import of those files by just creating this macro here. So we're going to call this import employees. And you can I'm going to give it a description. I'm going to call it macro for pending employee data into table employee or table employees. And I'm going to save that import. Now at this point, I can open the table, and as you can clearly see, I have data, 9,813 records to be exact. And it only pulled in the first 3 columns of that file. Now within a table, we have columns, and then we have rows. And this row right here is called a record. So this is a record of this employee. And we have 9,813 of them. We didn't have any import errors, meaning data issues, but I do suspect on the second table I will have some errors. So I'll go through that in just a minute. So I'm going to just click Save, close this out, and now I'm going to create my next table. But instead of manually building out this table, I'm going to import an Excel file and allow Access to build the table for me and place the data within it in one step. So if I come back to external data, click on New Data Source from File, and I'm going to choose Excel because I know that this file that I have for the personal time off is in Excel format. Once again, click Browse. There it is, EMP PTO. Click Open. Now I'm going to import the source data into a new table in the current database. This is important. I'm not appending because I can't append it to table employees and I don't have another table in there. The other thing I could do is link to it. So if I just wanted to link to that file externally and not bring it in the database, I can select that one. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you how to import source data into a new table. First row contains column headings, absolutely. Click Next. Now I can kind of cycle through here. So here we have the year. I can change the data type at this point. What I'm going to do is leave it as short text. I'm going to move over to carryover. This needs to be a number. Now you'll notice a blank. And you'll see in a minute the issue this is going to cause. But for now, I'm just going to call this a double. Then I'm going to click Next. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on Total. Again, I'm going to go with double. Used, double. And then remaining is also going to be double. Click Next. I'll let Access add the primary key. That'll be for my query and later. Click Next. And now I want to name the table. Again, I'll prefix it with TBL. And I'm just going to call this one PTO. And I'll click Finish. Now at this point, I'm not going to save these import steps because I don't want to create a new table every time, because this table is going to be maintained within this database. So I'm just going to close out, and then I'm going to go to table PTO. Now you'll notice right away the years are missing because, well, they weren't in there to begin with. Carryover, total, used, remaining. Now, the question may arise, and you may have thought of this, is how do I relate this table to table employees? Well, we do that by the ID number. That's one way. As you can see, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, etc. So we're going to leave it just like that for now. If I wanted to, assuming that employee ID is a unique number, so those are 3 different ways that you can create tables. You can manually create it within the database and then append data into it, or you can manually enter the data, or you can import the file as a new table. And then another option is linking. I want this to default to the current year. How do I do that? Well, placing it into design view and make sure you've selected the field name year. Go to your default value. And we're going to place our cursor inside the default value. You'll see some ellipses over here on the far right. Click there. Come down here to expression elements and expand the functions. And then double click the built-in functions, or single click actually. And let's go to date time. There's some expression values here. Now, I just want to display the year in this particular field as my default value, the current year. So if I double click year, you'll notice I'm presented with the function itself, but within the function, it's looking for a date. Now I can type something in there and I could just do 1/1/2023, but the problem with that is that every year you'd have to go back and update it. I don't want to have to touch this again. So how do I get around that? I look for another function that I can place within there, maybe a date function, and there's two of them. There's one that returns a date variant, which this is not a data type date time, it's data type short text. So if I look at this one will return a string, and that's what I want. String text, that's what I want for this field. So if I double click date here, and I come back here and I double on the expression values and I double click date, $, then you'll notice it places the date field into here. So we have year date, and if I click OK, you'll notice that it's place our expression here for our default value, and that's great. Field size is 4. Here's the year. Give me the year for the current date. This is going to take the system date. Save that. Now I'm going to go back to datasheet view, and let's click this button here. So let's talk about the navigation. Here, this will take you to the last record. This is the current record, 1 of 983. Now you can actually type in here and type in a specific record if need be. This right here will take you to the first record. So let's say you're down at the bottom or in the middle. You want to go back up to the top, you click this, and it quickly takes you there. And this one right here will create a new record that you can do data entry on. But let's go to the last record. And I'm going to scroll down, and you'll notice this says new. Now this has not been written into the table, but this is where you would actually enter in new data. And you'll notice right away it defaulted to 2023. And that's because of the formula. So next year, when you open up this database, this will say 2024. So from this point forward, you won't have to touch this field again to update the year. It's going to give you the current year that we're in. Now, notice it does not apply to the fields that are already in here. This is on a go forward basis when you enter in or bring in new data. So if I were to take out these fields and append the data back into here, provided that these are still blank, it's going to populate all of these with 2023. So that's just a useful tool or useful aspect that Microsoft Access allows you to do within these tables. And this is going to become real important when we go to forms and we start building out our forms and we want to validate our text to make sure that before we save that record, that all the required fields are there and they're in the correct format. I hope you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching.